So Icarus Deception is an interesting title. It's a metaphor, obviously. Talk a little bit about Icarus and some of the myths that are out there, and then let's talk about Kamiwaza.
Great. Okay. So myths are true. They're true, not literally, but we made them up because they talk about our best selves.
Yeah, I love the fact that you referenced Joseph Campbell, by the way, personal favorite.
Right. Campbell's stuff is really extraordinary. The same stories keep coming up over and over.
Yeah, the hero's journey.
Exactly. So, the reason that we celebrate Thomas Edison is because, the myth we tell about Thomas Edison is the person we would like to become at some point. Right?
Yeah.
Well, the myth of Icarus, which is thousands of years old, said the following. Daedalus, his dad, was banished to an island for crossing one of the gods. And Icarus was there with him, and they wanted to escape. So Daedalus fashioned, they always use the word fashioned, wings for the two of them, and then affixed, they always say affixed, them to their back with wax. At this point, the myths diverge. If you read the myth today, or in 1950 or 1910, it says, Daedalus said to Icarus, "Do not fly too close to the sun, or the wax will melt and you will die." Icarus disobeyed his father and perished. Well, what's the lesson? The lesson is, listen to your dad, don't have a lot of chutzpah, do what you're told, don't fly too close to the sun. Hubris is a bad thing.
Right.
That's actually not what the myth used to say. In 1820 and 1720 and 1020 and 1,000 years before that, the myth said what I just said, and then Daedalus said, more important, my son, do not fly too low. Because if you fly too low, the mist and the waves will weigh down your wings and you will surely perish. And I wrote this book because I think we're flying too low. I think we need a lot more hubris, a lot less obedience, and a lot more awareness that this revolution was just handed to us. And if all we're using it for is, to put up silly pictures of cats and the Pope, we're wasting it.
So you're encouraging people to create a ruckus.
Exactly. Because, there's a difference between throwing rocks and making a ruckus. You're making a ruckus in the service of something worthwhile, in the service of something generous. That it feels way more risky to you than it does to everybody else. But that if you do it in the small, you'll get good enough to do it in the medium and in the large. And that's where the next innovation is going to come from.
And it is about, I want to talk more about thinking like an artist, because we sort of define what an artist is, but thinking like an artist then is trying stuff that may not work. It's starting someplace and ending up in a completely different place, and not worrying about what the world says or how much applause or even money you get, right? If you feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I in a few places in the book I try to unpack it a little bit, but one of the things that artists have talked about through the years is you must first start with the blank slate, which is it's all on the table. The other thing you have to do is learn how to see. Meaning, if Jackson Pollock had lived 200 years earlier, he wouldn't have painted the way he painted. And if he had lived 200 years later, he wouldn't have painted at all. That it wasn't that he had, in his DNA, he needed to paint like that. It wasn't that Van Gogh had in his DNA that he needed to be a painter. Instead, they just decided to see what was around them and go one step further, maybe two, but not three. If you go 3 steps further, you're not making anything that anyone wants. 1 step, 2 steps, that's where art lives, but you can't do it unless you see. And training yourself to see and not censor the thoughts that are coming to you, that's critical. And then the third piece is you have to learn how to make. You actually have to have the skills to do something that matches your vision. And all too often we fall down on 1 or 2 or all 3 of those steps because we're in such a hurry, we fall in love with ourselves that we put out a piece of crap and we say, isn't this great? No, actually, you might have saw something, but you didn't know how to make it.
Yeah. And that's the dilemma we're having right now, because it's never been as easy to start a company, never been as easy to get up a video.
Yep.
And now everyone has a soapbox, right?
Correct.
So in my mind, quality is the new social proof.
Right.
That's what's going to dictate what gets noticed, what gets attention, what gets trust, is if it's good enough for those people, if they love it, right?
That's right. You have to, it goes beyond love to feel compelled to tell someone about it before you go to bed. That's how good it has to be.